What's up, bud? It's Rob. This is Apparel Success. And in this video here, what I want to talk to you about are the ingredients for a successful clothing brand. If you view your clothing brand as a deliciously cooked meal, what are the ingredients that actually go into creating that meal? That's what I want to talk to you about when it comes to growing a successful clothing brand. What are the actual things that you need to have in place that will allow your clothing brand to become successful? It's going to be a good one. Here it is. This video here is sponsored by my buds over at Brand Crowd, and if you need designs made for your clothing brand, I seriously recommend that you check them out. They have a huge library of already professionally designed logos that you can customize, so you can add your own fonts, your own layouts to it. All of this is free to try. Then if you decide that you like the logo that you've made, you can decide to purchase it, remove it from the marketplace so that it's yours. If you're interested, follow the link in the description because it'll give you a huge discount. All right, so just like you'd appreciate a beautifully cooked meal that just smells delicious, and you can appreciate that they used all the right ingredients, and they even maybe added their own special touch as a cook, that's essentially what we want to be doing for your clothing brand. And we want to be thinking about what exactly are the ingredients that go into creating a successful clothing brand. That's exactly what I'm going to be talking about in this video. So what I want to start out by saying is that the first ingredient that you need is, if you yourself as a clothing brand owner aren't a creative person and you don't have a creative background, or creativity isn't a strength of yours, you may just be in the wrong industry here, okay? Because growing a successful clothing brand is essentially one of the most creative businesses that you can get into after, say, music or painting or something like that. Because what you're doing is essentially creating something out of nothing. You're creating a unique brand concept, and then you're trying to express it in a unique way that's really connecting with people and that people are wanting to rock on their bodies, not because it serves any sort of utility function, but because it actually is something that resonates with them on an emotional level, okay? So if you're not attuned with that, if you're not a creative yourself, I'm just gonna come straight up and say it, that you may be in the wrong industry, because growing a clothing brand, building a successful brand is really a creative endeavor. Now here's where it's gonna sound like I'm contradicting myself. If you're 100% creative and that's all that you are, you're also likely going to struggle when it comes to growing a successful clothing brand. And the reason for that is because if you don't apply certain fundamental principles of business, like, say, important marketing strategies that you need to put in place and universal principles of business success, you're likely going to just be like that guitarist who's sitting in his basement absolutely shredding and is an amazing talent, but has absolutely zero business sense and doesn't understand the importance of actually applying himself to the business world, and that there's real rules out there that you need to follow in order to get attention, in order to sell yourself and things like that. So you need to really combine these two worlds of being creative with also realizing that there's kind of this competitive marketplace, and you have to apply certain marketing strategies and certain business principles in order to get success. So if you're the person that's able to be creative on one side, and you also have the business strategies and you understand the importance of both, then you're gonna be at an advantage when it comes to growing a successful clothing brand. So those are the ingredients that you need as the operator of your clothing brand in order to become successful. But let's talk about the actual clothing brand itself. What are the ingredients that go into creating a successful clothing brand? The first thing that I want to talk about here is your brand concept. And your brand concept is essentially the idea behind your clothing brand. If I ask you what exactly is your clothing brand all about, what's the first thing that comes to mind? That is what your brand concept is all about. And if your brand concept is not based on emotions that people are deeply feeling and deeply identified with, you're really going to struggle to connect with them and actually create a brand that goes the distance and appeals to a lot of people. All right, so I want to give you two examples here of brand concepts. One is going to have good ingredients, one that's going to actually allow you to achieve success, and the other one's going to have crappy ingredients and isn't going to lead to you creating a well-cooked brand. All right, the first example that I want to give you is a brand concept based on planting trees and saving the environment. That is something that a lot of people are deeply emotionally identified with at the moment. And so this gives you a really good chance at connecting with people on how they're feeling and selling a lot of clothing based on people emotionally resonating with your brand concept and your message. So that's an example of a good brand concept. And obviously this has been done before a lot, but it's an example of a brand concept that's really connecting with people and will allow you to sell with ease. Now let's get into the bad example. Let's say that your clothing brand concept is all about clouds in the sky. You're just super obsessed with clouds. Well, not a lot of people are going to emotionally resonate with that, and they're not going to identify with, clouds in the sky. And so that's an example of literally fluffy messaging. They're literally fluffy, but in a real sense, not when nobody's connecting with your brand like that, and they're not emotionally resonating, that's where your clothing brand is really going to struggle to sell. No matter what type of marketing you throw out there, no matter how good your posts are on social media, you're really going to struggle to sell and to connect with people, because people just simply don't care about clouds in the sky, and they're not identifying with it. And I know that this is a funny example. You may be oh yeah, but who's going to come up with that? You'd be surprised how many brand concepts are ridiculous like that, where they don't actually appeal to anything real that people really care about. And it's really like you're caught up in this almost delusion that just because you've come up with this idea that it's going to become successful. And when you come up with brand ideas like that, this is where it can lead to frustration, years going by of you struggling and not knowing exactly why. And at the end of the day, it's simply because your brand concept is just too fluffy and it's not connecting deeply enough. All right, so let's say that you've got a really good brand concept. That's a really good start, but what are the ingredients you need to pile on top of that in order to become successful? Well, the next ingredient that is absolutely necessary, okay, this is like if you're making a bowl of cereal, you need this, is like the milk to the cereal, is you need to acquire credibility for your clothing brand, okay? And this is probably the ingredient that is most often overlooked by clothing brand owners and by businesses, to be honest. They just don't see the true value in it and the true importance of it. And the reason why you need social value, why you need credibility for your clothing brand, is because as human beings, we're social creatures, and we have this instinct to look to our peers, to look to our neighbors, to look to our friends and family, and especially to look to the people that we look up to see what's cool, to see what's valuable. And so when you get people wearing your clothing and you actually are able to show that on your website, you're able to show that on your social media, that at the end of the day is going to be your best sales tactic. And it's really a passive selling tactic. It's a passive selling strategy, but this is what's going to allow you to sell in numbers, where you're not having to convince people to buy every time in a one-on-one conversation, but where people are just going to be sold on the value of your clothing brand very quickly just by coming to your website, because all of this is displayed up front. So it's basically like you're displaying your brand's value rather than trying to sell people on it all the time. You're just displaying your brand's value, and it's just something that's being exposed to them whenever they come to your website, whenever they come across your brand on social media. And this is just absolutely necessary in order for you to create a successful clothing brand. So we've covered 3 ingredients so far. You have to be creative. You also have to have a business sense as an individual. You have to have a good brand concept, one that's connecting with people deeply and that people are deeply identifying with. And you need to acquire credibility for your clothing brand. And there's one more thing that I want to add on this video as sort of the final ingredient that you need in order to become successful, which is that you need to be extremely detail oriented when it comes to your website quality, your product quality, the way that you're displaying yourself on social media. And all of this really falls into the same umbrella as just being really detail oriented, going everything and being extremely conscientious. This means that, you don't treat the details as being something like whatever. You actually go through each little detail of your brand and you make sure that it's all taken care of, because one little, 1%, 2% tweak for your brand really does make a huge difference when it comes to the perception that you're able to create to new traffic, to website visitors, and to people coming across your clothing brand for the first time, okay? So have that detail orientation. Don't shy away from it. Spend time on it. Invest your time in it. Don't look for the shortcuts. Don't look for the easy way out. Really invest your time into going through the details of your brand and making sure that you're covering all the corners, that everything looks great, and that everything looks as best as you can possibly make it. So those are the ingredients that you need to create a successful clothing brand, and I really hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, smash the like button for me and drop a comment, leave your brand down there. I like to check out the brands that are watching, and I want to tell you about my free clothing brand marketing masterclass. You can check it out at apparelsuccess.com/masterclass. It's 100% free to watch. And if you've made it to this point in the video, I want to tell you about the closed Facebook group that we have for Apparel Success. There's a link in the description. Follow that link, join us in the group, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.